10 seconds remaining.
Welcome to Game 2 of Fnatic vs DK in the
seconds
international group stages. Fnatic just lost Game 1, or DK won Game 1, however you want to put it. Either one is true. DK played really well, and I think it had a slightly, they just had a slightly more stable draft. Fnatic went for a bit of an all-in on a gank up at top at level 1, smoking in Venomancer and Vengeful Spirit to try and surprise. And they're like, oh, you know, it's gonna be a solo Darkseer up there, Trixie Darkseer, and then they pop in and they kill MMY's Rubik very quickly. But then there was a Visage, and that's kind of what it came down to. The Visage just pumped out the soul assumptions, and it turned into 3 kills for DK, 2 of them going to Burning on Anti-Mage, and that was pretty much it. There were some bad kills on Era's Weaver as well. Hani did the best to recover the game with his DK, but he just couldn't quite pull it off. And by the time that that Burning showed up with his ungodly amounts of harm,
5 seconds remaining.
it was pretty much over for Fnatic. This game, however, they have not just better solutions against the Batrider, because ROTK did some good work on Batrider last game. They've got the OD this time, which really helps out with that, and the Bane to boot. That's the Nightmare functions in a similar manner to Disruption or Imprisonment. It's not quite as reliable, but it's still a solution. Helps. And they once more get the Weaver. There's been so much Weaver for Fnatic in this tournament so far, and didn't work out. I feel like Trixie might be a stronger Weaver than Era. Era just didn't seem to be getting quite enough farm, and some of his play just didn't seem quite on top of it. So I'm kind of hoping it's a Trixie Weaver this game. Trixie did do a good job on Darkseer, but if they're gonna run the Weaver, maybe they should put it on Trixie. DK, in addition to the Batrider, they get the Lone Druid. Could be a Burning Lone Druid. It could be a Super Lone Druid. It could be ROTK. I don't think it's going to be any of those. I think it's probably going to be Burning, which makes me wonder about the Anti-Mage ban for Fnatic. I guess they're thinking. I guess they don't want to take the risk. If it is a Burning Lone Druid, then
5 seconds remaining.
So be it. But if it's not, then they don't want to deal with the Anti-Mage once more, especially with the draft that they have. Anti-Mage is it's pretty good against the Dragon Knight OD Weaver. That's still in the pool, and I would honestly be kind of surprised if Fnatic didn't go for it. Which that would kind of indicate that that means they're drafting the same thing over and over again, but it's working mostly. So it's a tough choice for them. Do they branch out, or do they go with what's working? And if it's working in the TI3 group stages, then it's really working. Like, it's not a fluke. All of these teams have practiced against so many different kinds of lineups, and if what you've been running is successful, then it's got to be a nerve-wracking affair to try and decide about whether you're going to go with that or not. DK also get the Chen, so they have some pretty decent push at in both the early and the mid game. I imagine it'll be a super. I guess that's the rationale behind the Anti-Mage ban. If it's a super Lone Druid, he'll go mid and go up against Razor. We'll go up against OD. And Lone Druid does well in that matchup, so long as you're not KYXY on orange and get ganked 3 times. Fnatic pick up the Razor as their 3rd core. We'll see what DK picks up. I think Razor's pretty great, and at this point is established as a stable pick. Now that teams seem to have kind of figured out how they want to run him. I will be a little bit curious to see. Ooh, Pugna. Have not seen much Pugna. Pugna's very strong versus OD. OD burns through a lot of mana with his orb, and he immediately regens it with the Essence Aura, which means that he's just going to be burning more of his HP. So it's going to be a rough situation for OD if they're not able to take out the Nether Ward from these fights. But that can really slow down OD's OD's strength in these fights. And he'll also
Fnatic's
definitely need a
turn to
BKB
pick.
because he'll just always have to account for
DK's turn to pick.
that ward. And sometimes you can't find it. Sometimes it's going to be in the trees. Sometimes it's going to be God knows where. And without something like a Bat Rider, something that gives flying vision, it can be pretty difficult to track down where the ward is. I like the Pugna pick though, and it does help with the pushing as well. Does a lot of damage to towers, but I think in this game in particular, it's more about challenging the OD than it is
10
necessarily about the
seconds
push,
remaining.
which Pugna certainly does.
5 seconds remaining.
Fnatic round out their draft with the Crystal Maiden, and I think that's I like it. Every time I see a Crystal Maiden, I think, oh yes, the mana regen aura. That's a great support to have on this team for the mana regen aura, but they never fucking get it. Ooh, Shadow Shaman. DK are going for a heavy push lineup. Very heavy push, and I think this is actually... It's going to be rough for Fnatic. They've got to survive the first 25 minutes of the game, which is kind of the opposite of how it was in Game 1. They needed to apply the pressure in the first 25 minutes, and now it's more DK that needs to apply the pressure. They're up against a Tricore and Lone Druid. Certainly can't handle that on his own. It's actually going to be a super Pugna, so it will be a mid Pugna going up against OD. I don't think that lane is going to go particularly well for Pugna, if that's what it is. They could swap it. It is a possibility. They could also send Burning mid and super into another lane. In fact, that may be what they do. Eagerly awaiting to see. But the Shadow Shaman really rounds this out nicely. The only question for DK is getting the experience. That's the trouble. I think that's part of why we don't see as much Shadow Shaman as we used to. It's just, if you don't get the levels, then he is really not useful. You've got to get him to 6 for the Serpent Wards, and really has to go beyond that just to get the full utility out of the Shackle and the Hex. So I do like this by Fnatic. They're going to ward up the jungle here. I don't know if this blocks the spawn. I want to say that it does. But it's also, it's a lot of vision of important areas of DK's jungle. Now they don't have... I would say this would be an even better ward if they had something like a Nature's Prophet. Because this ward is very likely to spot a courier and they could teleport in. But there's no Nature's Prophet in this game, so it's not worth talking about that. But
the battle begins.
it's also... Ooh. There's a sentry ward here, but can QQQ spot it? He may have to spend a second sentry ward to locate it, and he hasn't looked up onto this high ground here. It's very hard to de-ward this. I've never seen this ward placement before, and it's very effective. I don't think there's any way for QQQ to spot it without some kind of ability that provides vision. So for Fnatic, we've got Era on Razor, Fly on Crystal Maiden, and No Tail on Bane. In this aggressive tri-lane, Fnatic has been running so many aggressive tri-lanes, and I think this is a problem for DK. They may not have been expecting it. Perhaps they were. They do have the Lone Druid, or no, they have RTK down at bottom, and if they were expecting a defensive tri-lane, they wouldn't send the Bat Rider down there. They'd have him somewhere else. Though with the Chen pickup, they don't really have a choice. It's going to be easy farming for Era, and Super may not get very much. If he steps out too far, or MMI for that matter, they're both kill targets. No Tail and Fly just waiting on the sidelines. There's no wards here that may have spotted them, but I think if they're intelligent, and they are, they should be pretty aware that this is happening. Oh, the freeze? Oh, okay, the creep from QQQ. That's unfortunate for QQQ. It's forced to immediately retake control of the creep there. So yeah, QQQ is going to be on the Chen. He'll be roaming the jungle, having a little bit of a rough start because he's had 3 camps. No, that's just a de-ward of the Observer. 2 camps warded up. One of them is a medium camp, one's a hard camp. So his options for creeps are a little bit limited, and he has to go near the tri-lane in order to get his other creep. Over in mid, we've got Hani on OD and Burning on Lone Druid. Seen this matchup for the 3rd time today. Burning should do okay. Hani will win just slightly. It will pretty much come down to ganks from QQQ though. If QQQ can show up and particularly once Burning hits level 5 and hit an Entangle, it's possible that they could kill Hani, but it will all depend on the rotation from DK supports. Down to bottom, this has got to be the 4th or 5th time we've seen this matchup now. Weaver versus Batrider. Weaver really seems to be winning it out fairly consistently. And particularly, it's been very common for the Batrider to leave at level 5. Just gets too much harassment. Especially because of the wand charges just constantly give you the ability to Shikuchi, and mana regen is just not an issue when you've got so much coming from your wand. Up at top, QQQ is trying to help out Super. He's got a tornado creep, or the Wild Ring Ripper, sending a tornado down the lane. It's annoying for Fnatic. It's not too much of a problem. It's mostly a problem for slowing down QQQ's jungling. He's going to try and de-ward this, which just out of range of Fnatic's ward. That's unfortunate. And he doesn't have any more sentries, so he's out of luck for getting that de-warded. And that's an Observer. That's going to be there for another 3 minutes. Unfortunate for QQQ. Does get a Centaur, though. It's fortunate for him. He's probably waiting to... he's going to maximize the utility out of this, have it auto-attack as much as possible, and then resummon. I think he was expecting Fly to spend his mana on a freeze, but no such luck for QQQ. QQQ's off of a very slow start. 3 minutes in, he's still level 1. Super, he's actually doing okay in the scheme of things. I mean, 8-1 could be a lot worse, but Era is sitting at 14-2, so definitely winning out in this lane. Over in mid, Burning's actually winning. This is the first time I've seen Lone Druid beat OD mid. But it's happening right here, right now. 7-6 on Hani versus 17-11 on Burning. He's doing really well, and Burning's strength is in the laning phase, so it's cool to see that this is used to defeat a normally disadvantaged lineup. And that's also really good news for Burning. The more he can get out of this laning phase before the supports start rotating, better news it is for his team, because his other lanes are not necessarily going to go that great. RTK really has to be careful. Well, it's a bit of a stalemate up at top. Fnatic are a little nervous about going in, especially because of QQQ with the right creep, and this is definitely qualifies as the right one. A Centaur can do quite a lot in a try versus try situation. Fnatic has plenty of damage, but one of the things about the static link in this tri-lane scenario is that DK are not dependent on their auto attack damage. Era can steal a lot of it, and that'll be great for him, but he's not stopping a lot of damage. Oh, there's a Crystal Nova onto Super. He drops the Nether Ward, but it doesn't look like there's going to be much follow-up. Oh, nice combo there. I didn't think about the synergy between the Decrepify and the Ether Shock. The Decrepify doesn't have to be used just for the Nether Blast. You can just use it to combo with the Shadow Shaman's Ether Shock, and that's a lot of damage. I also like the use of the Nether Ward there, instantly dropping it the second it looks like Fnatic might go in, and that really discourages Fnatic from trying anything funny. QQ spent a lot of time trying to make this this tri-lane fail. And he's kind of, I mean, he's succeeding. The problem is just that he's sacrificing himself for it. Which you could say that's what Fly and No Tail are doing, but they provide a little more than Chen does at level 3. At least in my opinion. Nightmare and 2 sources of Disable from Crystal Maiden, as well as the mana regen aura, which he has picked up. Thank fucking God. Trixie's chasing down RTK. Actually, this could be first blood. Just one more right click and he won't go down. 7 HP. So close. RTK is going to try and juke through these trees. Trixie will attempt to predict where he's going to be. He's got to be careful here, because one teleport from somebody on DK and he could lose his life for this attempt. But nevertheless, he's chasing RTK out of lane, and that's pretty much it. RTK will potentially rotate to another lane. Ooh. There's that combo is deadly. Jesus Christ. Look at that. So much damage. And it's easy to land too. Something to note about the Ether Shock is that the actual cast range is not that long, but the effect range isn't the length that it extends is much farther. So if you just ether shock something that's in front of your target, then you've got a pretty good chance of it hitting long range. I'd love to go. I can't remember what the exact range is on it. If someone wanted to go look that up, that would be lovely. One of my 3 viewers. My 3 viewers who say nothing. But it makes it very easy to land, and the timing is not so tight. And there's one unfortunate thing about level 1 Decrepify is that it only lasts for 2 seconds, which means you really got to be aware of exactly when it's going to be cast. So over mid, Hani's managed to catch up. He fell behind for a little while there, but now he's even back up. 33 and 19 versus 33 and 14 on Burning. So that's really how it ought to be. But the fact that Burning is completely even is a pretty good sign for DK. Rune spawns bottom, and it's a haste. Haste on Lone Druid is not particularly useful. RTK will continue to try and challenge at bottom, but Trixie, I think at this point, he's got a pretty big advantage. RTK is at 1100 gold at this point, and there's not much stacking being done in the jungle, so I'd suspect that he's got... Actually, there's a little bit of stacking. None. Ooh, Era. No points in unstable current, so none of this is actually dealing damage back to DK. The Centaur stun lands on Era, but they've managed to get the first blood from the Brain Sap onto Super, and they could get the kill on QQQ here if Era turns around. He's popped the salve. Oh, nice placement of the plasma field. Hits both MMY and QQQ. So really nice play from Fnatic, just narrowly making it out. Era was so close to giving up the first blood from the Centaur, but No Tail showing up at just in time. A little greedy from DK. They knew that they could potentially do it, but I think one thing I kind of wonder about is, I mean, as good as the plasma field is, there's a lot of targeted abilities here on DK, and unstable current could really be pretty effective. So I kind of wonder, what if he had at least one in that? It would have been actually a much less risky situation. I mean, that's 70 damage, 40 damage, even at level 1. So actually 2 in orb up here for Hani. That's unusual. So he's gone for a different sort of build than I've really seen on any OD so far. He's maxing out Arcane Orb. Not maxing it out, but he's got 2 points in it way before he's picked up the Astral Imprisonment. And this is why he's caught up against DK, or against Burning. I don't know what it is about the names on DK, but I read DK.Burning, and I feel like the player name is DK. But he stopped getting extra points in Astral Imprisonment because he realized it's not stopping Lone Druid from getting any of these last hits. So he gets more points in Orb for better auto attack and to harass down the bear. And you can see that Burning has had to resummon the bear at least once, and the bear is already dropping low. And that's a problem for Burning. He's also completely out of mana as a result of these imprisonments. And the other advantage is that because you're not leveling up in prison, not maxing it out, it increases in mana cost by 20 each time. So you're less likely to run out of mana, especially because he's maxed out the Essence Aura, which you have to if you're going to go for an Orb build. But that's why Hani's caught up in this lane and has started to surpass Burning. So great adjustment by Hani. I haven't seen that before, and I think it's pretty brilliant. Versus Lone Druid. Works very nicely and kind of demonstrates that there's no way that you can shut OD down. It's kind of a problem. So we're 2-0 at 11 minutes into this game. Trixie's basically free farming down at bottom. He's 53 and 12. Burning is free farming as well, or close to it. So even with his adjustment from Hani, he's not quite stopping Burning from farming. He's getting a little bit of an edge, but not quite. Hani's topping the charts at 57-27. Era, he's actually fallen behind Super at this point because of all the pressure from QQQ. And there has been so much of it. hasn't been able to stay quite as aggressively positioned in the lane, so he's at 37 and 13 versus Super's 44 and 4. And arguably, DK is probably getting more out of this arrangement. There haven't been a lot of pulls because they used the observer there. It stopped the first 6 minutes, and there were a few, but DK's rotated up the top, and Burning's here. This tower's dropping pretty low, pretty quickly, so it will go down with no challenge from Fnatic. Hani has not had a lot of opportunity to get any damage done on the mid-tier 1 because he's been up against a low druid. Trixie down at bottom has not either for his respective tier 1. But I think Fnatic's goal right now is just to buy some time for Trixie and Hani to get their basic items up. Static Link works on the bear. I did not realize this. I was wondering that during the draft, but it makes Razor an even better pick in this game. Pretty easy link target. The bear is really fast, so it's kind of hard for Razor to stay on top of him, especially without without any points in unstable current and no upgraded boots or drums or anything like that. There's a smoke up on 4 here from DK. Hani, however, he is just going off to farm the jungle, so this rotation will not produce any kills quite yet. Down at bottom, Trixie managed to get the bottom tier 1 down. RTK, he's got his blink dagger.
Radiant structures are fortified.
The wards are dropped mid along with the bear, and there's the creeps from QQQ, so pretty good situation for him. This ward is really problematic though. I really like this combination from DK. It's so hard to get past these wards, plus the bear, plus the creeps, to get to the ward, and you can see how much damage they're all taking just from the ward. Doing a lot of work. Oh, there's a lasso from RTK onto No Tail, so he's going to get taken out no problem, and suddenly things look pretty rough for Fnatic. At this point in the game, it's actually stayed really even in terms of gold. Experience actually favoring Fnatic, particularly because they spent so much time with Trixie solo down at bottom. Ooh. There's an entangle onto Trixie. He's probably just gonna, he's gonna phase shift it. Not phase shift, time lapse it. It won't be okay. But I really like this combo. One of the problems of Pugna is that, the ward is wonderful. Having it in theory is very strong, but it's very easy to kill. But with this ability for DK to tank the towers and just have the ward way in the back line, provide a lot of stuff that Fnatic has to push through before they can kill the ward, makes it very effective. Now Trixie has to be careful here. Needs to get back before RTK gets in range for a blink. Lasso still got 20 seconds on cooldown, which Fnatic, ideally they should be keeping track of the cooldown on Lasso, particularly at this point in the game. Earlier on in the game, it's important to track cooldowns like that. Later on, you can just kind of operate on intuition. Well, the bottom tier 1 goes down in favor of DK. That's all the outer towers that they have now taken, and only one in favor of Fnatic. Getting some damage up onto the tier 1 top, and they did some work on mid, but that's about it. Mechanism up on Super. Important to keep in mind that Decrepify combos quite nicely with the mechanism. You can get an extra 40% heal if you really need it. Can be a risky combo to use in a fight, but after the fight, it's certainly very efficient, especially if you have someone who's extremely low. Hani, gone for his beloved double null talisman build. Because he had to pick up orb early, he went for the tranquil boots, which you really have to do if you want to maintain your mana. So 1700 gold on top of that. I imagine it'll be a sheep stick up next for him. So smoke up by 3 here from Fnatic. Trying to come around from behind, but they've got to be careful about how they initiate this. Trixie, he does have a TP. The wards are dropped on mid. Wow, DK. No hesitation here, and there's a lasso onto Hani. Can they take him down fast enough? Defensive imprisonment, actually. Shadow Shaman gets taken out of the fight basically instantly, and Hani is able to force staff himself out just barely. There's a nice static link from Eris, deals a good chunk of damage. Fly is on the run. He's probably going to go down. DK, they sense, they see the fresh meat, and they go chase after it. So Fnatic, they come out pretty decently here. They're probably still going to lose their mid tier 2 because this push from DK is pretty ridiculous. Looks like I think my prediction of they need to survive the first 25 minutes is definitely correct. Oh, not just to stroke my ego or anything. But DK, they just decided to group up after 11 minutes of general passiveness. From both sides, to be fair, not just DK. But that was a pretty decent engagement for Fnatic. They survived the lasso, the good self-imprisonment from Hani, and didn't use the Sanity's Eclipse there. I feel like there could have been more of a turnaround from Fnatic, but perhaps because Fly went up and not in another direction that was more favorable for Fnatic. Tough to say. Oh, actually, there's another lasso. Wow, I didn't think that was going to be what it was, but there's a Hand of God used on RTK to keep him up. Force staff out by Hani. Fly, one more right click from Burning, and he will go down. Now he gets shackled up by MMY. It's two kills to none in favor of DK, but Trixie in the backlines does get the Dire Courier. Did that have anything on it? Oh my god, it had a lot on it too. Jesus, that's bad. Okay, that's 2 Force Staffs, 1 Urn of Shadows, and 2 Rings of Regen that are sitting on the Courier right now. That will not be available for 3 minutes, so that's actually a really nice pickoff by Trixie. That said, DK will take down Roche really fast. They'll drop the wards for it, but that's okay. Can Fnatic get more towers here? So they did manage to get the mid tier 1 in that engagement, and Era up at top took down the top tier 1. So Fnatic finding some trades, and they get the top tier 2. This is actually really good for Fnatic. Losing the Roche, not great, but they can't really challenge it anyways. They've got to wait a little bit longer, and the Lincoln Sphere recipe is picked up by Trixie. This is a big deal, getting a much earlier Lincoln Sphere than in Game 1. Really good news for Fnatic. It makes Trixie a much less viable target for ROTK. He does have his Force Staff sitting on the Courier right now, so he'll have that once it's back up. And Era, he's finally gotten his basic items up. It's pretty important for Razor to have this core little set of items that provides so much movement speed, a lot of survivability, and now we can start working on a BKB, which will prevent a lot of the magic damage that DK puts out. DK does have both types, mainly through burning, but I don't think he's really not really worried about burning, because if it's the bear is going on him, he static links the bear, and that's actually a pretty great static link target for Era, especially in the middle of these fights. If you can get a big static link off, that you can take all of his damage. Fnatic will continue to look for trades because they know that the DK they have to push S5 in order to make these pushes work. They're split all across the lanes. They're getting way more out of the map right now than DK is. Now, that said, this is a big push coming up, and DK could potentially take next at 20 minutes if Fnatic does not play this perfectly. They need to get that ward down. Oh no! There's a big, nice defensive imprisonment onto No Tail. However, Era, he's dropping so low. He's in the middle of the Firefly. He will go down. The Hand of God is gonna keep DK going for the time being. There's a time lapse by Trixie. He's still focusing on Burning, who has this Aegis. There's 3 buybacks from Fnatic right now. So they managed to take down Burning. They used up the Aegis. All of the ultimates have been used by DK so far. So this push, if Fnatic can live through it, they might be able to live through it a second time. They need to kill this ward. This ward is such a pain in the ass. So DK walk out of that with no deaths. They force 3 buybacks out of Fnatic, and they get a lot of damage onto the tier 3. Pretty favorable engagement for them. Fnatic lived through it. It was quite possible for DK to have taken the top racks there. I don't think some of the positioning was particularly optimal, but ooh, Trixie finds a solo kill. Ooh, these are the kind of things that DK cannot allow. Yeah, solo kills like that are what will allow Fnatic to stay back in this game, and particularly having QQQ down. That Hand of God was fairly crucial in that fight for keeping DK all the way up and not giving up any kills. I love the Fnatic's response to this is not to be passive. They want to remove towers. They want to take whatever gold they can when they can, and they know that with QQQ gone, having no creeps available, this is currently a good time for them. And they're not actually, I don't think they're only 1,000 gold behind, and experience only 2,000 behind. And that's really, that's the difference of that fight. Talking right there. So Fnatic, they're not behind in terms of farm or experience, but they just need to live through probably another 10 minutes of this business. Taking the Roche is going to be an interesting point of contention. It's another 6 minutes before that's up. And I don't think that Fnatic will have any big items up before then, which makes it difficult to see them challenging it. They might have the BKB up on Era, and there's the mechanism up now on Hani, so that's available. Pretty big deal, but he's not going to have anything else besides that. No Tail. He's got Arcane Boots, Bracer, Fly, Treads, Bracer. He's tanked up a little bit. Nice thing for Crystal Maiden. But Trixie, he's a long ways off from getting any particular items. Burning, he's got a Maelstrom and an AC about half built on his bear. 1,100 gold on top of that. Oh no. That was a pretty easy kill for DK. No Tail goes down. That's not a huge problem for Fnatic, and in fact, they've pushed all the way up to top, forcing a response back from DK. This is a great way to respond to this. They know push strats very well, and they know that if they force just one hero to TP back, that the push from DK will not work out. And if they can just stay aggressive and keep the pressure on the side of DK side of the map, they can still make this game work. But yeah, the Roche is a big question in my mind. Another 5 minutes for that, and I just don't feel like they can take that 5v5 engagement. It's just so hard, and there's so much AoE and damage from DK. Between the wards, the Nether Blast, the Firefly from ROTK, there's a lot of ways that DK create problems in these fights for Fnatic, especially the supports who, like No Tail, he just wants to get a Fiend's Grip off. But there's a lot of ways for DK to stun him out of that. Pretty much everybody on DK has a way to interrupt that. Ooh, Trixie, he could get a solo kill on Super here. There's no one nearby. QQQ, can he show up in time? Nope, he's just going to TP out. Decrepifies himself and TP's away, so he'll be alright. RTK is a double damage. Unlikely that he could take Trixie down. With some help, he possibly could. He jukes up into the trees. He has a TP available. Oh no. Is there a gem here? Yes, there is. Oh, Trixie. Oh, Trixie. He's going to go down. That's the kind of kill that the Fnatic cannot be giving up right now. That's 50 seconds where DK, they will probably just instantly start barreling down the top lane. At least that's what I would imagine. Because they can. There is a buyback available on Trixie. He doesn't want to use it. So Fnatic is not, they won't lose the game because of that death, but it could set them back pretty badly if DK chooses to push this, and they are headed in that direction. 18 seconds for Trixie to be back up, so he should not have to buy back. They've got the Fortify available, so yeah, he's going to be able to wait. Hani was doing some pushing down on bottom, but he's not going to be able to continue that for very long. Big Sanity's Eclipse is important in this fight. Oh, there's a Fiend's Grip onto Burning. Immediately interrupted by the Flame Break, but the bear goes down. Burning does have a resummon, so that will be back momentarily. The wards are going to get focused down by Trixie, and this push from DK could get stopped here. Can they get the tier 3? Yes, they can. ROTK, he does manage to get the lasso onto Trixie. Can they take him down? Yes! They got the defensive imprisonment, so Trixie will instantly be able to time-lapse, but it's not enough. It lasts too long, and so none of the damage gets reversed, so an instant buyback from Trixie. The Sanity's Eclipse on 3. Era, he gets entangled up But defensive imprisonment from Hani, oh man, the damage from the Nether Ward is so much. It's doing so much work. They have to kill the Nether Ward. They have to. That's the reason Hani died there. Now Hani does have a buyback. It's unlikely that DK can continue this push without all of their cooldowns. Particularly, there's only 70 seconds left. Or there's a full 70 seconds left on Bear. Ooh. Well, DK is going to continue the push. They just wanted to force out the buyback, and so they do. Unfortunate for Hani, it's going to delay that next item. But a good fight for DK. It looked like it could have been better for Fnatic. It was a bit of a slow imprisonment onto Trixie, and the problem in that fight was that the time lapse reversed absolutely no damage. So it basically sent him back to exactly where he was before the imprisonment. It's the only problem with a long imprisonment like that, and I think they probably could have just honestly imprisoning someone else might have been a better solution. But this Nether Ward from Pugna is so problematic. I mean, that's definitely why Hani died. And it doesn't help with anybody else either. Really need some BKBs up on this team. If they can get BKBs, I think their time, they'll have a much better time. Era is pretty close to his, just under 250 gold, 150 gold. Hani, because of that buyback, got set back a little bit. Probably could have bought it otherwise. But he does have the Oracle Club and 1,000 gold. Oh no, he's going to get caught. Oh no. That's it. I don't know. 60 seconds without Hani. DK can barrel down mid, and there's no buyback for Hani. This is at least the mid-racks about to go down. I don't think that Fnatic can take this fight. They really need Hani's damage. And that pick-off is huge from ROTK. DK looks like they're set to take this 2-0. I don't know. The big question is, if it's only one set of racks, can Fnatic come back from it? But that's a big if. Oh, nice 4-step forward from DK, pushing Era forward, making an easy target for burning. Oh, no tail. He could go down. Yes, gets finished off with the Ether Shock from MMY. DK will back out, so it is only going to be one set of racks. But forcing out a buyback on Era means yet still no BKB. Man, I never thought that Pugna's Ward could be this much of a problem, but versus OD, it's so deadly, and these supports are suffering so much. They're taking so much damage that they wouldn't have at all otherwise. There's no positioning that you can use to avoid this Nether Ward. And Fnatic just can't take it down. So I don't know. With one racks down, I think Fnatic, it's going to be very hard for them to come back from this. These are not comeback carries. Weaver has the potential for it, but when you're 7,500 gold behind, 10,000 experience behind, and that's going to be a second Roche as well. I don't see a reason for DK to stop the 5-man. It's just this is not a 5-man lineup. This is the sort of match where, like, Faceless Void. I bet Fnatic would kill for a Faceless Void right now, to jump into the fight and to Chronosphere 4 heroes that are standing right on top of each other. At least that's how I imagined it in my mind. Would love to see a Faceless Void actually used successfully in this tournament, but I don't know. Oh, Hani, not again. It's gonna happen again. This is a repeat of about 3 minutes ago. Another 60 seconds without Hani, and Fnatic, they can pressure as much as they want in the other lanes. I don't know that that's going to stop DK from, well, Super. He's got to be careful here. There's a Fiend's Grip onto Super. Super will go down. The Hand of God is used, but it's not used to any effect. So Fnatic, they buy some time. And I think, relatively speaking, oh, no tail. Well, it's going to be for a trade. There's the Entangle. No chance for no tail to make it out, so he will go down. It's a decent trade for Fnatic. Taking out Super, I honestly think he might be the most important hero on DK. Burning's pretty important too, but that's kind of it. AC is up on Burning's Bear. QQQ, he's gone for Vlad this game. I think it's a great pickup when you have this heavy push. He's also going to earn Bracer, Arcanes on top of that. Really good position for a Chen to be in. Had a slow start, but that's really okay, all things considered. Era is so close to his BKB. He just wants to finish it. That's all he wants. Actually, Hani wants to finish his even more. I wonder if this Mythic Hammer on Trixie is a BKB or a Desolator. Either one is an option, but I don't know. He's not nearly as worried about the Nether Ward as everyone else on his team is. I mean, it's only 60 mana for Shikuchi. His total mana pool is just not that much. So I think a Desolator would probably be the better pick. They just need more damage at this point. They're starting to fall behind in that department. Have been behind, particularly in terms of AoE. I'm starting to think that the Bane pick was a little too reactionary. It's very common to pick the Bane against a lone druid, but in this matchup, doesn't offer a lot. And looking at this team, this is where I feel like get some Tidehunter in this business. Admittedly, Fnatic wanted to run the aggressive tri-lane, and Tidehunter wouldn't have fit into that, but I think in retrospect, the aggressive tri-lane just wasn't going to, because they didn't get enough work done, and I don't think Bane and Crystal Maiden are quite deadly enough to make that aggressive tri-lane work. Without more pressure in the aggressive tri-lane, they had to be planning more for the late game, and without earlier levels and more gold on their supports, I think Fnatic put themselves at a disadvantage. Fly may get caught here. Yes, there's the lasso onto poor Fly, and he will just get melted. He buys back. Fnatic is going to make their last stand here. They're not giving up any game without a fight. There's Fiend's Grip used onto Burning's Bear. He does have a resummon, but can they even kill it in time? That is dubious, Fiend's Grip. Dubious indeed. Fnatic is doing everything they can to chase them out, and they do successfully for the moment, but that Fiend's Grip, 90 seconds without it. They definitely need a higher value Fiend's Grip for whenever the next fight comes. It's possible that DK won't push until it's off cooldown again, but I mean, they don't really have to. I haven't looked at the items much for DK, simply because it honestly doesn't matter a whole lot. It's more the hero picks in this game that are so influential. They can pick up whatever items they want, and still I think this strategy would work. Ghost Scepter and Force Staff on MMY. Nice little bit of survivability, particularly versus Era and Trixie. Two sources of anti-auto attack. That is a Desolator picked up on Trixie, and there's a Basher on Burning's Bear. Very deadly bear this is. Oh, there's the static link onto Burning's Bear, but there's a Force Staff in from RTK. Immediate disruption from Hani, however. Era is nonetheless attached to him and will get focused down. So it doesn't matter that RTK gets imprisoned. Perhaps should have imprisoned Era. Ultimately, though, there's a hex onto Hani. He'll get burned down. Hand of God used to bring everything back up to full, and that's going to be the bottom racks. Trixie, he will go down, and the GG is called. 35 minutes in, 5-20. DK, great strategy. That Pugna really made this work. I don't think Fnatic were prepared for how intense the push was going to be. They perhaps felt that they had accomplished a little bit more in their aggressive tri-lane, and that they thought that I actually thought that with QQQ's slow start that he would have less impact on Chen. But in fact, that was not the case. They weren't actually relying on his creeps. He was just kind of an extra bonus in the middle of it. It was DK's entire lineup did like a lot of work. I mean, everybody on DK offered a lot. The Ether Shock on Shadow Shaman, big deal. And there were a number of hexes and shackles that secured kills in that game, and not to mention, I mean, the wards. The wards were so much damage that there is nothing that Fnatic could easily do about with stepping forward. And Pugna, I talked about the Nether ward. There was no life drain relevant in this, but particularly for the tri-lane, the Decrepify plus Ether Shot combo was very strong, and I think it's why Fnatic didn't perform as well as they thought they would have. QQQ's Chen definitely provided a lot of work, a lot of soaking up the tower hits, the Hand of God, all around. Just a great draft from DK. I think a really solid response to Fnatic's general strategy, which has been so effective so far. So it's possible that Fnatic is being figured out. I think they might have to adapt if they want to continue winning games. This is honestly a little bit more how I expected the Fnatic games would go versus China. I was pretty surprised that they went 1-1 with LGD. I mean, I'm also surprised that they're in the top 8 right now. But nonetheless, great game. Really cool to see Pugna put to excellent use.